तो अभी हम लोग recording. Hello friends, I am in Coimbatore with Venu Gopalan ji. He is father of Karunya. She was all of 20 years, the darling of the house. On 8th of June, she took the vaccine.
Correct.
It was Covishield.
Covishield.
And 10 days later, she started feeling the symptoms. So I would request Venugopalan ji to please narrate the sequence of events. That what I get for sure is that she was a very healthy child.
Yes.
And as her mother also tells me that she was not just a healthy child, she was a role model for the youth.
Yes.
She was a Carnatic
actually,
vocalist.
yes.
So can you tell more about the sequence of events?
Yeah, I will. Basically, as you all know, vaccination for 18 plus was opened up in May. And prior to that, in April, me and my wife had got jabbed, and we thought we didn't have any problem. Only later I realized I too have a problem. My eyesight, I started getting Graves' disease, and hyperthyroidism was diagnosed in June. But that's a side story, separate track. Basically, what happened was at the time of in May, we never thought we had any problem, and when it opened up for 18 plus, my daughter also signed up for that vaccination, and she took her Covishield injection on June 8th. Yeah. So what happened was she took the injection on June 8th, and on that day she had a mild fever, nothing serious. And next day she was at that time interning with Goldman Sachs, so she resumed her internship and she was working regularly, normally. And on 18th, severe symptoms started. Like she had leg pain, complete leg pain. She couldn't walk at all. She had severe throat problems, and she couldn't swallow, she couldn't speak, and she had high grade fever, 100, 203 kind of.
On 18th, that is 10 days after.
10 days after.
Right.
That was a Friday. And then on Saturday, first thing we suspected was COVID, basically. So we took her to the nearby laboratory. We took a RT-PCR test in the morning. And the result we got by afternoon, it was negative. So we were all relieved. We thought it is some throat infection. So we gave her azithromycin and some paracetamol for fever, and we hoped it would go away. Nothing, no improvement the next day. And so next day we took her to the nearby hospital and got her tested. And doctor said throat severe infection. She should not be given anything solid and only liquid diet.
Yeah.
He also gave all the medicines, similar medicines, but everything in a liquid form. So we came back with that on Sunday. She took them. No improvements. Monday we took her again there, and she was admitted there. Same hospital, she was admitted. Doctor immediately said, let me take one more RT-PCR. Maybe the sample was not collected properly. And he took one more RT-PCR. Even that came negative. And then doctor put her, the problem is doctors don't connect vaccine with this. That is one of the major problems.
Right.
They don't suspect vaccine. So they start testing for bacterial culture. Their protocol is entirely different. So she's throughout on paracetamol. All this time, whenever fever comes, bottles and bottles of paracetamol is going into her body.
Okay.
And then 4 days she was in that hospital. No improvements. The things were not improving. All test results were negative. All bacterial cultures for various things, all blood. And blood test from day one, that is from Monday when she was admitted, all immunomarkers are way high.
Okay.
Way high.
D-dimer,
CPR, IL-6.
Right.
All these numbers are way higher than normal. Actually, the doctor should have known that. There should be protocol that if that is the case, immediately, and it is happening after vaccination, immediately they should have started steroids, but they had no knowledge on those things. Steroid was kind of kept as a last resort. If nothing works, then we will go to it, kind of a thing. But by the time it was too late. Anyway, 4 days she was there, and then we were worried, very worried. And then one of the friends also suggested she should be kind of shifted immediately to a specialty hospital. And then He recommended a doctor through some doctor connection, and then he said a doctor in PSC hospital, which is a medical college hospital here.
Yeah.
So we shifted her there on 24th of June. She was admitted there, and that doctor gave a lot of assurance. One Dr. Murali, when we went there, nothing to worry, it's not alarming. We were so relieved to hear that. And on that day, he gave one NSAID, non-steroid anti-inflammatory drug, and it really relieved her pain and fever. And we thought, oh my God, we came to the right place. But that was only like a painkiller. It was a temporary. In fact, we asked him, is this a painkiller? He said, no. I don't know how he said that. And it didn't solve the problem actually. When that medicine's effect waned, again she will get the same problem.
Yeah.
So then again the same thing repeated there. There the blood tests were all showing elevated numbers. They were running test after test and sent things for culture. Meanwhile, there being a higher hospital, they had CT scans. We even did PET scan, and all these things were done. Everything came, no problems in those days. Actually, the problem was MIS, multi-system inflammatory syndrome, which they diagnosed very late, because there is no literature, there is no protocol that after vaccination this is happening, and if it happens,
Right.
this is what you need to treat. No doctor is informed.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. And it was much later, and they started steroids on 4th of July. By that time, it was a bit, and she showed steroids and anticoagulants. Both were started on 4th July. Anticoagulants immediately helped her to walk, showing clearly it was blood clots in the legs that was a problem, microclots. So it immediately improved. But this was on 4th July, and but then the fever would not subside. And then the doctor said, like, we need to start IVIG, because on 6th she had severe fever night. She had, the body would violently shake and all that stuff. So 7th they said, we need to start her on IVIG. So they started IVIG, and IVIG, I don't know what went wrong, or it doesn't suit, or maybe the body by that time with all those paracetamol had weakened. With the starting of IVIG, her body collapsed. Like she kind of BP went down, and oxygen levels went down, and he had to be rushed to the ICU directly from the room on that on 7th.
Yeah.
And after she went to ICU, it was actually a complete downhill from there. Nothing, no major recovery except some blips of hope at times. And then on 10th of July, she breathed her last. Actually.
Yeah. So it's so excruciatingly painful for the family. You can see she is second from left. Not only a healthy child with very healthy habits. She was a classical vocalist. She was a veena player, a tabla player. The last book she was reading was George Orwell's 1984. There was no medical history before the vaccine happened.
None. The blunder we did is injecting the poison in a healthy
and
body.
What I am so pained by is that Mr. Venugopalan is afraid that his family members would consider that he's gone insane if he also shares that he himself has sustained severe vaccine injuries. You can see the swelling under his eyes. Could you please take off your spectacles? You can see the swelling on his eyes. There is, palpable discomfort as I'm talking to him. And this is, if this is not inhuman, if the vaccine without the proper trials, and what Dr. Peter Doshi of British Medical Journal says, that it is not a vaccine by any yardstick, it is a emergency use drug. And what Dr. Peter McCullough very categorically says, that it is toxic by design. It has synthetic proteins. It is essentially a bioweapon. So how is a country like India, a sovereign entity, without checks and balances, allowing our own people to be killed? Do we really need enemies in this country?
So I believe that these vaccine drive should be stopped immediately. Immediately means immediately. Every single day, every single additional jab that goes into any body is a crime, because it does no benefit to anybody. The worst things can happen. Worst things. Actually, the autoimmune disorders that it can create are far too many. I've been studying this after this disaster, and my understanding is this is now a ticking time bomb, actually. Except those cases where they got placebos, or maybe they got different dosages, mainly placebos, I would say. Even dosages, they are going to have problems. Placebos, the rest of them, it is a serious problem, I'm telling you. And the vaccination statistics, what we are seeing, are also completely cooked up. I got a vaccination certificate yesterday for my second jab. I haven't left the home since morning, but I got a vaccination certificate SMS saying that you got your second jab. How did this happen? Because they are just like that, issuing vaccination certificates to the first dose people who have taken the first dose and who are not coming for second dose. They are blindly giving it just to boost up the numbers.
Yeah. So, Mr. Venugopalan, I have been following up as part of Awaken India movement, and it really makes me sad to believe that being an ancient culture, being a large country, we have somehow lost our way in fighting against this very intractable enemy. We are too either in shock or too dumb, or we are numbed by the psyop tactics. And that is where I would like to specially request everyone who's watching this video in India that a very strange situation exists, that the other day Mr. Reiner Fullmich, who is leading the grand jury proceedings, I'll tell more about the grand jury proceedings in a while, he was very hopeful that the Indian courts will somehow listen to the appeals of the crimes against humanity, the cases that are being led by Advocate Nilesh Ojha and Advocate Dipali Ojha, along with Awaken India movement. But as we clearly know that, and including your own case, the appeal to Supreme Court, it has not yet been listed. There is no further date.
Correct. Date
on
has
it.
Not been given. Yeah.
The classification, even though there are telltale signs that Karunya died from the Covishield vaccine, Karunya. Even then, it has been classified as a B1, which is a temporal causality association,
yes.
But not A1, even though it is very categorically that she had no other prior medical history.
Yes.
There was no case of comorbidity. She was a role model of a youth.
Yes.
With very good habits, a musician, a talented person, a scholar. So this is one case I would especially like to request the World Council for Health, as one of its coalition partners, that please take up Karunya's case for the grand jury proceedings.
Yes.
And tonight, when Dr. Tess Lawrie and Dr. Matthias Desmet are there on the Making Sense program, that is Ireland time 6 p.m., which will be 11:30 p.m. in India, then I would specially request Dr. Tess Lawrie and Dr. Matthias Desmet to also explain to us the mass formation psychosis, which is even more intense and even more pervasive among the educated middle class in India, who are so shocked, and maybe many of them are even fighting for their own sustenance, their own survival as the economy is tanking, that they are, for some reason or the other, there are no mass protests in India.
Yeah.
So we are kind of sleepwalking into a disaster, into a trap, into an elaborate trap that has been laid for us. And this may lead to millions of death, or maybe even hundreds of millions of death in the coming months, if at least some of us don't wake up and don't summon the courage to be able to stand up against these very nefarious tactics.
Yeah.
So
here, the one thing I
yeah.
would like to say is, I really don't know whether the doomsday scenario might come true or not. I'm not an expert to comment on that. But one thing I know for fact is, this vaccine is not necessary, because COVID is, like I've seen in many people, unvaccinated and vaccinated, how it impacts. Vaccinated impacts even more, and unvaccinated tend to have a milder thing and finish a disease and
Mr.
it's over.
Venugopalan, I would like to clarify on that point,
Yeah.
that the Pfizer data has been disclosed by Robert Kennedy
Okay.
just few days back.
Okay.
And what it establishes is that if you are vaccinated,
Yeah.
the chances of dying within the first 6 months are 21% more than if you are unvaccinated.
So
I think that leaves no iota of doubt.
So we just don't need it, number one.
Yeah, firstly, it is not a vaccine.
Yeah.
See, we Indian middle class are too, docile. We are too subservient to be able to, speak the truth, because we are so conditioned that, though the proof is telltale that it's a bioweapon, we are not able to summon the courage against the very mob-like tactics. Because so many people have been hoodwinked around us that we are not able to dare to say what it is, that it is not a vaccine.
It is definitely not.
It is not even an emergency use drug.
Vaccine, by very definition, should prevent infection. Where is it preventing? It is not preventing.
So it is actually leading to 21% more death within the first 6 months, and even more maybe after 6 months.
Exactly.
So that is the proof.
Yeah. So basically, the expediting death, most likely a probability, but much higher probability is definitely this is going to cause a range of health issues, for which the doctors themselves do not know what to treat with, because their protocols, their experience so far in their practice, everything has trained them to treat in a certain way, which naturally occurs, or through a certain combination it occurs.
Yes.
And what they are seeing now is totally new phenomenon, and they are all doing trial and error, and it causes its own set of problems. So it is it's complete mayhem and chaos actually in the health sector.
So all that put together from a legal point of view, and as I have been following what Reiner Fullmich, the legal luminary who has won big cases against likes of Deutsche Bank and Volkswagen. So he is very categorical that the conventional courts, the governments, they have not only lost their face, they have lost the legitimacy. And according to the natural law principles, that people are the only sovereign, that people can now start private grand jury proceedings and acquire legitimacy by mass mobilization, by which we create a new systems and structures which will be more responsive to people, which will not be treacherously killing people, but rather safeguarding them and our health and well-being. So on that note, I would, along with Venugopalan ji, request Tess Laurie, Dr. Tess Laurie, the founder of World Council for Health, Dr. Mark Trozzi, Dr. Jennifer Hibbard, who I had the good fortune to interact during the last General Assembly of the World Council for Health, as well as people like Xavier Elizabeth from Bon Sens in France. There is Interest for Justice, Dustin from Costa Rica. There are various other entities, Michael Alexander, and of course Reiner Fullmich, to take up Karunia's case. You can please look up again. I'm bringing it close. She is the one in blue dress. You can make it from her face that she is such a innocent, such a brilliant child, so much of divinity, no prior medical history, and it is clear, unambiguous, that she died from the vaccine dose, the first vaccine dose itself that she took on 8th of June 2021. With that, we would like to conclude this session, and uh, with all your questions and deeper investigation. I've just reached Coimbatore this morning and I'm still talking to Venugopalanji on the course of action for the grand jury proceedings. So please guide us. We would connect at the Making Sense program at 11:30 tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone who joined in, and thank you everyone who's listening to the proceedings.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you can exit. End.
I need to stop the recording.